Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a camera versus camera test. That's right, I have the Canon M50 and the Sony A6400. Yesterday I made a video where I wanted to see how well the cameras did against each other. The Canon M50, people say it doesn't do so well in low light, and with the Sony A6400, people say it has really good low light capabilities. So I figured what better way to do a test than to use this camera, that camera at the same time, do two tests in one video, and it's also going to show like how well they do against each other, right? So like if you're thinking about purchasing the Canon or the Sony, this is pretty much going to answer all of your questions about the low light of each camera. So I shot the video yesterday and I mounted both cameras on the tripod using a rig that I have. And this way they were side by side and you can see, you know, as you go up through the ISO range, like what each camera is doing. So I just thought it would be a really interesting video. So with that being said, let's get to the test. On one side, I have the Canon M50, and on the other side, I have the A6400 by Sony. This camera, the Sony, has been well known to have the best low light capabilities out there in the sub $1,000 price range. The Canon, on the other hand, doesn't do as well, but it's certainly not bad. But I was always curious about this, and so I decided what better way to see than to put the two cameras right next to each other and then go throughout the ISO range using different light sources. So right now I'm actually using a light source from my window that's a few feet to my right. And then after we go through the ISO test, I'm gonna use a constant light source such as the Softbox. All right, let's get it started. All right, so guys, right now I have the Canon on this side, I have the Sony on this side. Now, one thing I thought that was kind of interesting is how on the Sony, there's much more around me than the Canon. The Canon looks a little bit more punched in, but I have both cameras here using the kit lens, and the Canon actually has a 15mm and the Sony's at 16. So you would think that the Canon would be a little bit more open than the Sony, but that's not what I'm seeing here. So what I'm assuming here is the Sony definitely does zero crop in video mode, and even though the Canon, most people think it only gives you a crop in 4K mode, it's apparent that it's actually cropping in just a tiny bit even on 1080p. With that being said, both cameras are now on auto ISO. I have two apps here on my phone. Well, I have one on this phone and one on the other phone. And what I want to do is just go through the range. So right now, both are on auto. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the next setting now, which would be 100. Okay. So now both cameras are at 100 ISO. As you can see, the Canon, it's pretty dark, and actually the Canon should be a little bit lighter because it's a little bit closer to the light source. The Sony, it's dark, but I mean, from what I could see, it's usable. All right, we're gonna go up to the next setting. All right, both cameras at 125. All right, getting a little bit lighter. We're gonna go up to the next setting now. All right, I'm at 160. The Sony actually looks pretty decent right now. My exposure meter says minus 1.3. The Canon, it's got to be probably minus 3 because it's much, much darker. The next setting we're going to go up to is 200. Okay, so now both cameras are at 200. Right now the Sony is looking a lot better. At this point of the video, what I want to explain is why the Sony does just a little bit better than the Canon. So both cameras have the same megapixels, the same amount of resolution in each sensor. But the Sony sensor is just that much more larger, which means that the pixels are just a little bit larger than the Canon's, which is why the Sony does better in low light. The pixels let in more light, therefore giving more information to the sensor and allowing you to get a nice, clear image in low light situations as well as less noise in the video. Okay, so now back to the apps. We're both on 200, and right now we're gonna go to the next one up. I'm at 250 on the Canon and 250 on the Sony. Okay, the Sony is pretty much perfectly exposed at this point. The Canon, I will check right now. The Canon is still -2, -1.5 on the exposure. So right here at 250 ISO, we're at 1/50th on both of them for the shutter speed and a 3.5 aperture, which is the largest we'll go on both of these cameras. Okay, so now we're looking at that. All right, I'm gonna actually go up to, let's go to 400. So I'm at 400. Okay, so the Sony is perfectly exposed. The Canon is probably -3, I'd say. Yeah, it's about minus. It's actually -1. All right, I want to go up to 500. Okay, so now we're still perfectly exposed on the Sony, but the Canon looks like it's still just a slightly under as far as what the reading is telling me on the monitor. So I'm going to go up just one more setting, which is 640. Okay. The Sony is actually getting too bright now. It's at +0.3, +0.7, but the Canon, from what the readout is telling me, the Canon is perfect. So I wouldn't say that they're too far behind each other. I mean, I can keep going up, but they're just gonna get more blown out. Okay, so for my second test, what I want to do is I want to actually kill the natural light and start back at 100 and just go through the ranges and see in like darkness or very, very low light how these cameras both perform against each other. So let me get rid of the light and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I have all of my blinds shut. I have all of the lights off, no TVs, no lamps besides that one. I'm gonna actually kill that and kill my monitor. And we're gonna get this test started. All right. Both cameras are on auto, which I can tell you right now, my Sony's going crazy because it's at 6400. It's blinking, which means it wants to be higher, saying, hey, something's wrong. The Canon is probably, yep, Canon's at 64. Okay, so this test is gonna be awesome because now we're really going to see how well these cameras do in a low light situation. And you could still see behind me, I have light bleeding through from my blinds. I don't have blackouts, so this is the best I can do. But I think it's still going to be a great test. All right, so opening the app up. Now, ISO. Okay, I'm going to go to 100 ISO now. Haha. So, you guys could probably hear me, but you can't see anything. Both screens on both cameras are completely blacked out. All right, we're gonna go up to 200. 200 made no difference. Okay, let's go up to 400. Okay, so 400 on the Sony, I can see myself, hey, and it's even trying to face detect. The box is going around my face. It's like kind of going and disappearing, but of course it's very, very dark. Wow, apparently, and I don't know how the Canon's doing it. All right, so I could kind of see myself there. It's very, very dark, but it's actually trying to lock on my face too. So both autofocus systems, I would say at this point, are struggling, but I think they're doing a really good job. All right, I'm going to go up to the next level right now. 500. Let's go to 600. All right, it's getting a little lighter. I can start to see myself in the Canon now. I'm going to go up to the next ISO, 800. All right, so 800 on the Sony. What's up? All right, I'm starting to be able to make myself out. The Canon is actually picking up my face now with the square, as well as the Sony staying locked on me the entire time. The Canon is The Canon's picking my face up only in like right here. If I start to move my face over here where it's a little darker, it loses it. The Sony just has my face locked the entire time. Okay, we're gonna go to the next ISO. We're at 1,000. My Sony says minus 2.0 for the exposure, so it's 2 stops underexposed. We're gonna go to the next one right now. And so right now we're both at 1250. What I'd be really interested in seeing is the type of noise that we're seeing in the picture, right? Because that's what we're really concerned about. Like, of course, we want to be able to see each other clearly in our videos, but if shooting in low light situations such as this, if you don't have a light source, even with the Sony right now, while I can see myself, I'm kind of curious to see how much noise is kind of like in the background and stuff, or maybe even all over the place. The Canon too, I can't really see that much noise in the Canon. It's really dark still, the screen, but again, that's why we're doing this test. So M50 versus A6400, true low light test. I haven't seen anyone else do this before, so I'm hoping that you guys find this really useful in your buying decision. And also depends on what you're going to shoot. If you're someone that shoots outdoors a lot, this may not apply to you. If you don't ever plan to do indoor video, this isn't going to apply to you. If you're not going to shoot indoor photos, this might not apply to you. Again, this is pretty much a video test for anyone who's going to be shooting inside or in low light situations. All right, we're going to go up to the next ISO right now, 1600. Okay, both cameras are at 1600. Canon's starting to look a little bit better. Sony's starting to look a little bit better. Let's go up another stop. We're both at 2000. All right, now we're going to go up to the next one, to 2500. Okay, so the Sony's almost there. The Canon's almost there. We'll see. We're going to go up to the next is 3200. So now we're in 3200 ISO on both cameras. And again, really curious to, I can actually see noise in the Canon right now in this wall behind me. The Sony, I don't see anything. And that's another thing that most people, when they review these cameras, is that they say of how well the Sony does, and it's really because of how well it does with the noise in the low light. Not even just that you can make out the picture on the camera, like it has more light to it, but just the fact that you have less noise for the image. So the Canon, I'm pretty sure I see the noise. Yep, I see it. It's right here. Okay. So now we're going to go up to the next stop. We're at 4000 ISO. Okay. The Sony's just about perfectly exposed. The Canon, let's see if I hit it. The Canon's still -2 on the exposure meter. All right, I want to go up two steps to 6400. All right, we're at 6400 on the Canon, and we're at 6400 on the Sony. All right, so now the Sony and the Canon, they're very close now as far as brightness, at least from what my monitors are showing me. Let's go up to the next ISO setting, which is going to be 8000. Okay, the Sony meter is telling me it's perfectly exposed now at 0.0. And the Canon is, I would say, -0.5. So the Canon's almost perfectly exposed. Let's go one step up. 10,000 ISO. Okay, so now this is what I'm really curious about. I see noise all over. Tons of noise. The Sony, I can't really tell, but it really doesn't look like there's anything there. I'm plus 0.7 exposure, overexposed, but I still don't see any noise. We're at 10,000 ISO, super low light conditions. What do you guys think about this? I mean, I know that the Canon was going to definitely show more noise at even like 6400 or 6500, sometimes even 3200. I've seen other people review it and say that, yeah, you start to get noise anything over like the 3000s, but 10,000 ISO low light, and this is what you can expect. All right, so now we're gonna go One more stop up, which is my last stop for Canon at 12,800 ISO. 12,800 ISO on the Sony. What do you guys think? All right, I am maxed out for video mode on my Canon. I can no longer go any higher. Can we go any higher on the Sony? All right, let's take it up now. We'll leave the Canon behind, and we're at 16,000 on the Sony A6400. What does it look like? We're at 20,000 ISO on the Sony A6400. What's the next step? What do we have? 25,600. All right, we can go higher. Wow, 32,000. This would probably be if you were shooting in like complete darkness where you couldn't even with your own eyes see what was going on. These are the levels you might have to go to even get some type of exposure, but I can't see anyone ever having go this high. Do we have anything else? Okay, so the Sony is maxed out at 32,000 ISO. I don't know if there's any noise. I can see I'm 1.7 points overexposed, but I don't see noise. So, what do you guys think? The Canon's still left at 12,800. So, this is what you're going to get. This is the difference between the M50 and the A6400. Okay, so I'm going to set both cameras back to auto. And then I want to do one last test, which is just going to be using a constant light source. How low are the ISOs going to be perfectly exposed using a nice, clean, constant light source? So let me set it up, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back. I now have both cameras set back to auto ISO. The same settings still apply. This whole video, I've had the shutter speeds exactly the same. At 1/50th, I'm shooting at 24 frames per second, and the aperture is as low as it can go, f3.5. I'm now using the cameras with a softbox directly behind both cameras shining on me. So what I really want to see is how well the cameras handle their ISO settings using automatic with a nice, steady, constant light source. Okay, so I'm going to say the Sony's, obviously, I think the Sony's going to win. I'm at ISO 400 on automatic. The Canon, for some reason, you have to keep hitting the shutter button. All right, the Canon's at 500. Perfectly exposed, it's saying. So while you're a little bit further away on the scales when you're trying to like search for that light, when you don't have good light, when you do have a nice constant light source, I would say that they're only 100 ISO off from being perfectly exposed. The color science is different, so the colors are off. All right, guys. So I think that's pretty much it. I think I'm going to leave the video right here where it is. What do you guys think? I know a lot of people, obviously the Sony did a lot better. A lot of people will say it doesn't surprise me. I love both cameras. I think they're both great for what they are. The Canon M50 you can get right now for, I believe, $649 with a kit lens. The Sony is $999 with the kit lens. And so that's a $350 difference. Now, there are tons of other things that, to me, make it worth that money with the Sony. You can charge via USB, which means you can use external battery packs. You don't have to worry if you always have an AC adapter around with you. With the Canon, they sell one. I think it's like $80. I checked the Canon site, and it's out of stock right now. So if you were going to shoot a long time lapse, it's impossible to do with the Canon. The Canon's time lapses also actually just takes a video, and then based on your interval that you set, will take pictures out of that video and then just make a video for you. So it's nice and easy, whereas the Sony will actually take the pictures and then you have to take them and say 300, 400, 500, 600 pictures, load them into a computer, and then, you know, color grade them if you want. If not, still load them into a program like Adobe, or Sony has their own program. It will stack the images and build the movie for you. So it's a lot more steps, but I've done it with both. and the quality is night and day. Both autofocus systems seem to be on point. None of them are missing a beat. Haven't lost my face. Even in the low light, they've stayed locked on me. So pretty impressed with both of them. So as far as autofocus goes, you're good with either camera that you decide to go with. Like I said, the power is one thing. Oh, the battery life. The battery life on the Canon's really weird. So like it'll say 100% for like, I think 90% of the time that you're going to use it. And then it'll go to like, it has 3 battery bars. So it'll be 3 bars. And then like after a little while of using it, it'll go to 2 bars. And then like 5 minutes after it goes to 2 bars, it's blinking and says change battery pack. So it's really hard to find out like how close are you till you need another battery. The Sony, right now, it says 12%. It gives you a percentage, you know. And I would say the Sony battery lasts twice as long as the Canon. So battery life is better. Some will say the picture is better. The autofocus, I think, is the same on both cameras. The external charging, the build quality. I'm trying to think here. The preamps, the audio. Right now I can see my audio that's on the Sony display. Can't see it on the Canon. That's annoying because you don't know if you're, clipping on your audio. The hot shoe thing, people will say the hot shoe will block the screen on the A6400. Small rig has 2 different adapters that will actually move the placement of that really securely. I've heard it works really well. It's like $20 for each of them. You only need one, so you just choose whichever one you want. That will move the mic off to the side of the screen. Problem solved. The Canon, no problem with that. Although I will say this. On the M50, when I plugged an external microphone into the jack, I noticed there was some wiggle room. All right, the jack actually has movement in it. I remember seeing a video of somebody who said that they bumped their camera and now their jack was broken. I reached out to a few other people on YouTube who have reviewed the camera and used the camera, and they have all told me, yes, the jack has movement in it. Now, to me, that doesn't seem right because I know the jack has to be soldered to the PCB board on, inside the camera. And if that thing is moving, that's like a stress point. Will it break eventually? I don't know. The handle on the Canon M50, when you squeeze it to hold the camera, like if you're picking it up to take a picture, the grip, as you're holding it, it kind of creaks a little bit. So like that's a little annoying, even it's a $650 camera, but it's like, all right, you just make it solid at least, The Sony's just solid all around. The kit lens on the Sony, the barrel, when it's extended, it has a lot of movement. Let's see right here if I can. You see that movement? That's not the camera moving. That's the barrel on the Sony, and you can hear it. So I don't really like that on the Sony, but again, the Sony, that lens is like $100. So if you're buying it with that, it's like for $100, I'll take it because it works and it seems to do a really good job. If it breaks, it's like whatever. It's $100. Same thing with the Canon. The lens on the Canon seems a lot more sturdier, so I wouldn't worry about that. But there's things on both of them. So, all right, guys. So do me a favor. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this test? I hope it was useful. I hope you guys maybe got something out of it. I hope it's going to help you make your decision a little bit more than just seeing reviews and random video tests. I know some people out there, when they do tests like this comparing the low light capabilities, like one guy would do it while he's walking holding the Canon, and then the other guy's holding the Sony and he's like walking shooting a storefront. It's like, I don't understand how you could do a test when you're doing a true test side by side. Everything is exactly the same settings, same subject, everything. To me, that is a true test. So again, thank you guys for watching, and if you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, click the subscribe button. And until next time, I'll catch you later.